So fresh off of a victory versus the Hawks, you'd think the start of the season would go relatively smooth, right? Well, I mean, that's what I expected. Well, no. After simulating 10 games, we have a 3-7 record, which is tied for the 5th worst in the NBA. So that's not ideal. As for why, well, it's actually not what you might expect. The first thing I went to look at is rebounding because, of course, in Game 1 versus the Hawks, Maxi Kleber got killed on the boards by Clint Capella, but we actually were not bad there, though not great either. Then I was like, okay, it has to be the defense, but no, as I had hoped, this is actually a middle-of-the-pack defensive team, so the fuck, what is it? Well, it's actually the offense, and this is in spite of the fact that Luka has been unbelievable. You know how I wanted him to shoot 40% from 3? Well, he's done that and then some on 14 attempts per game. So there's no problem there, and the only clear problem I can see from these statistics outside of that is that John Wall is taking 8 threes a game. I don't know who told you you could do that, John, but you can't do that. But outside of that, I'm not exactly sure what's up. What I thought might be the problem is the My Staff thing. I didn't initially mess with that, so I went and did that. I also fired Jason Kidd. The only reason I didn't fire him from the very beginning is because Kidd had good coaching ratings in 2K21, and I assumed that would be the case for 22, but apparently 2K actually got it right this time around. Kidd fucking sucks. So, new coach, new staff. Another thing I did was turn down John Wall's 3-point tendency because it was way too high. Can't say I'm surprised 2K would fuck that up, so hopefully that will help the offense. Now with that said, I do want to make a move that should help the defense and rebounding and somewhat help the offense. I mentioned earlier that Jalen Brunson is kind of the odd man out with this team. His playmaking is less impactful now that Wall is here, and he's on a 1-year deal looking for more money than I am willing to pay. Not that he isn't worth that, just not on this team and not with my free agency plans for 2023. Also, side note, 2K has so many contracts wrong and rosters wrong. Luka got a max extension and I had to go and put that in myself, and even then it's not as much as it should be because they didn't give him the ability to make that max. I don't know. Hardaway also had a big extension but was on a 1-year deal, so I had to fix that. But I need to trade Brunson, and I want to trade him for a center. Now, I'm aware that this team has a shit ton of centers on it. However, none of them are very good, and none of them I expect to improve. So, I'd like to trade for a solid center who has room to become really good, but also not someone who's too good because 1, we don't have the assets for someone like that, and 2, there are a lot of centers in the 2023 free agency class that I have my eyes on. So, a younger center who's good but not too good with room to grow, who is defense and rebounding focused is what I'm looking for. Here are the names I came up with: Daniel Gafford, Mitchell Robinson, Nick Claxton, Onyeka Okongwu, Ivica Zubac, and Jackson Hayes. And among those names, there's really only 2 that make any kind of sense. Gafford is one of the few bright spots on the Wizards. He is both good for winning now and young with upside, which they'll want for their inevitable rebuild. If the Wizards were good, because he's a backup, I might try it, but the Wizards are bad. Mitchell Robinson isn't used much in New York, and he's been a tad disappointing in his career thus far because of fouling issues and injury. However, they really don't need a guard, and I couldn't find a third team that could offer something that New York would really want, at least not with something that's worth just Jalen Brunson. Nick Claxton is too important to Brooklyn, especially considering how much guard play they already have, so Brunson doesn't really matter to them there. Okongwu is kind of exactly what I'm looking for, but with Atlanta having taken him high in the draft and his brief breakout in last year's playoffs, I can't imagine they'd want to move on from him for what we have to offer. This leaves us with Zubac from the Clippers and Hayes from the Pelicans. Zubac is an important part of a contender, but with Ibaka being back and the Clippers short on playmaking, Brunson does make some sense for them. And as for Hayes, he's played just 16 minutes a game in his first 2 years of his career. He's a shot blocker, great dunker, and solid rebounder, but his overall game has lacked polish, and the Pelicans, despite being a rebuilding team, haven't really shown much interest in developing him. Now, they don't need a point guard. They just signed Devontae Graham and have Kira Lewis looking for a real opportunity this year, as well as Thomas Satoransky, who is solid, but they are in some pretty desperate need of shooting, and I think I could find a team that has a spare shooter that could use a backup playmaker in exchange, so I can make a deal happen there. And on top of defense and rebounding, another thing I wanted out of this center is someone who'd be a real threat as a roll man. There is little rim pressure out of the pick and roll with Kleber because he's not intimidating at all on the roll, and there's no dump it off player either, and that could be part of the reason why our offense is struggling a little bit. And Jackson Hayes, he dunks the ever-loving shit out of the ball. So I'm going to go with the Hayes deal, and the third team I'm getting involved is the Milwaukee Bucks, who are trading Pat Connaughton and a second-round pick to the Pelicans. Pat shot 39% on 4 attempts per game from 3 in the 2021 playoffs. He is a proven shooter, and the Bucks' second plus our second, and Moses Brown, who I think 2K has pretty drastically overrated, but whatever, is enough to get us Hayes. As for Milwaukee's side, George Hill is more of an off-guard these days, but Brunson is someone who can provide some playmaking relief for Drew and Middleton. So that is the move. Hayes is now our starting center, and Kleber is now coming off of the bench. He'll still get some small ball 5 minutes, but only a bit, only selectively, rather than that really being our only option. So with that said, let's see how Hayes does in his debut versus the Chicago Bulls. Hopefully well, because we need a fucking win. So right out of the gate with Jackson Hayes, I want to get him involved early, and a switch out of the pick and roll. Really, it was already a switch to begin with, but easy dump off pass to Hayes for the quick post move. That's nice. Patrick Williams is jumping off of the Luka pump fake. Another mismatch in the paint, and that's an easy layup. It's one element that I didn't harp on much. Nice block right there. When talking about this trade was I also just wanted somebody who could finish plays and be a threat as the roll man or as a dump off option in the paint. Maxi Kleber, like, that's not really a mismatch unless you're like 6'4" or below, and even then the ability to post him up is not that significant. Jackson Hayes with another block. It is nice to have someone who can just finish those plays, even if another 3 right there by Luka, even if like it's at the sacrifice of spacing a little bit. Overall, our spacing is fine, so I think we can take that sacrifice. Speaking of spacing, Luka with his third 3 of the quarter. The first game that I played in this series versus the Atlanta Hawks, Luka actually ended up shooting rather poorly in that game from 3 because I took a lot of not great step backs with him. I'm still trying to figure out the shooting in this game because nice crossover, dropping Zach, and then a 3 right there for his 4th 3 of the quarter. And then to show how hot he was in this game, he makes this shot that does not count. But as I was saying, the first game, not good from 3. Crazy pass right there that I totally did on purpose. As bad as he played from 3, he did have that like 3 3-pointer stretch, but this game in particular, I went on a whole tangent and barely kept up with it. He went amazing from 3 and really showcased the potential of the secondary playmaker next to Luka thing that I've wanted to see happen for a while, and I've been trying to essentially experiment with in this series. Pick and roll right there to Jackson Hayes, who has been phenomenal on both ends of the floor thus far. John Wall wide open from 3. I mean, that was the right defensive decision to prevent the mismatch with Vucevic, but easy 3 out of it, even though it's not the easiest because it's John Wall. Another block by Jackson Hayes. He ends up finishing this game with a whole lot of them, and then on this play, we reset. Luka gets the open 3-pointer, and of course he cashes that. I believe that's number 5 for him in this game. Hayes sends that one back and then recovers to Ersan Ilyasova, who's on this team, but then he still manages to make it despite that crazy contest. And then another quick play here to reset Luka for the 3, and that's his 6th of the half, I believe. And then bringing the double team because the guy's on fire. Apparently even John Wall is making some ridiculous 3s because God knows he had no business making that shot. And to close the first half, while this will not be a 3-pointer, it's a pretty damn impressive shot right there by Luka over Zach LaVine to give us a pretty sizable lead at halftime, and the outpour will only continue in the second half as he gets that 3-pointer right there. John Wall, the pass to Tim Hardaway Jr., who greens his shot. Tim is pretty much ironically, the beacon of consistency on this team for me thus far. I had to check the attributes to make sure that was fine. I believe that's superstar. It maybe is all-star. Great finish there by Hayes over Kobe White. I've been playing on Hall of Fame since, but this was recorded like a week ago. Hayes does get got there by Vucevic, but I mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr. being like the beacon of consistency for this team, which is just weird because he's not the most consistent player in real life, and that was a thing I was worried about with him. But the guy is just rock solid pretty much every game, especially from three, and his contributions are definitely much appreciated, even if they're not really noteworthy, just because there's not much I need to get out of Tim Hardaway. It just works, and there's not much thought put into it. I decided to simcast this game because we had a sizable lead, and the game ends with Luka having 11 three-pointers, Hardaway with 20 points himself, and then Jackson Hayes with 17, 11, and 8 blocks on 6 for 12 shooting. John Wall himself had a good game, so just a good contribution all around. Even Dorian Finney-Smith had a good game. But if you look at the adjust to sim stats thing, where they like change the minutes and all that, Luka set the NBA record for three-pointers made in a game with 15, and Jackson Hayes had a triple-double with blocks. So that's certainly fun. Also, John Wall and Luka Doncic combined for 31 assists, and I have to imagine that's some kind of record. And I have to imagine Hardaway and Luka combining for 23 three-pointers. Is that the math on that? I'm kind of stupid. I'm not sure. Yeah, 23. That has to be a record as well. So some fun stuff there, I guess. After that game, I decided to sim 10 more games, and while it was not great, it did go better and move us to the 9th seed. So hopefully the momentum gradually starts pushing us into the playoffs. Definitely a weird start though, for sure. Anyways, that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more MyNBA content like this, and cue the outro music.